What's up, fire fam? My name's Kiahonfire and welcome back to New World. Today I'm doing a video on AMRINE Excavation. This is the first expedition you'll be doing in New World. But first, before we start, I gotta lay out a few ground rules. This dungeon will consist of having Lost and these kind of ogre kind of people that will vomit and stuff, and they're not very good. Alright, so with Lost, they have they're weak to nature, they're weak to ice, and they're weak to the strike with the warhammer, so that's really good. They resist the thrust from the rapier, so do bear that in mind before you come in. The other tips I have for this as well is they're weak to strike and they're weak to lightning damage. They resist slash, they resist nature, and they resist fire, so having a fire person in here might not work out very well. This dungeon starts at level 25. But you can come here a lot earlier. You can unlock this at like level 17. However, I would recommend leveling up to at least 20 or 23 because then you're not going to have such a tough time. I absolutely do not recommend if you're below level 20 to enter here. Otherwise, you're going to hurt your team's progress by being the lower level one because things are going to hit you a lot harder. So I do not recommend coming here like low level below 20 because you're going to halt your team's progress and be a bit of a pain in the arse, if you get me. To yourself and to your team. So come in here a little bit later. You don't need to be 25 to do this. I don't actually recommend being 25 to do this. You can do multiple runs of this, but for your starting your first one, then 23, 22, that's fine. That will do the job. You'll be okay. Now, with this, you got a mixture of the Lost, which are like minion types. They're the weird, sicky looking zombies you find everywhere, but they're actually called the Lost. You get ghosts in here. You can get these weird little bat things in here as well. And you can get these big old ogres, or what I'll be calling trolls, or something like that. They have like a crown on their head. They're very mean, and they do a lot of damage. But in your first room, you have like 3 Lost, and you'll have a ghosty. Now, some of these minions, like the ghosts especially, can resist things or have certain attributes to them, like hearty, or perhaps they are resistant to ice damage, or weak to stuff, or they're like fiery. In one room, they will be fiery. So keep an eye out for that above their head. It will tell you what kind of thing they are above their nameplate, and we'll go over it. Then you kind of want to look at your team. Now, when you come in here, you want to at least bring 1 healer, 1 tank, and then you could either have 3 DPS or you can have another healer, and that wouldn't be a problem. Now, in this first part of this video, it was from the beta, but in the rest of it, it's only the very first portion. The rest of the footage is all in the full release, so I just want to give a little disclaimer there. But no, having at least 1 tank, you don't really need any more than 1 tank. I don't really see any reason for that. You wouldn't need that. It would actually be a bit more confusing when it comes to the boss, because the boss would probably be switching between one of the two. You would benefit more with having another healer or another DPS there. You don't really need 2 healers, but in my full release run, there was 2 healers in my party, which is nice, but it's not always necessarily. I mean, we did struggle a bit for DPS on the end boss because of having 2 healers, but we got through it and we did just fine. So I do recommend, you only really need 1 healer, 1 tank. It should be fine. You don't really need any more than that, unless you want to double healers, and that doesn't matter. Or you could just try with your friends and see how it goes. But we're getting to the actual dungeon now. We've seen a little bit of it on my video, and you've seen a little bit of how it's going. I will skip over some of the damage, so if we're just stuck like hacking at Lost for like 20 minutes, then of course I'm going to skip a little bit ahead so it's more appealing and we could get over the most important points about this actual excavation. So you come into the first big important room. It's full of tents. It's got some, it's got like a really weird big door at the end. We'll leave that to the last point. You're going to kill some Lost to get through here, and you're going to come across something really important on the right hand side when you enter, which is a nest. Now, these nests actually spawn the Lost. So if you kill the Lost next to the nest, they're going to spawn back right in straight away. So the idea is when you do come across a nest, you want to go ahead and get rid of it as quickly as possible. Now, you can either do that by going down the bottom here and shooting like I'm doing, or you can go up and group up together and you have all the Lost attacking you. However, you can all be in one group and you're hitting the nest and the Lost at the same time, and that could work out as a pretty good strategy. Or you can have 2 people run to the nest and try and beat it up while the other people are keeping the Lost distracted, and that works. Where next to the nest is your first supply chest to go and get as well. So you can go ahead and grab that. There's one bat here also that doesn't spawn from the nest. You can go ahead and get rid of that and you'll be fine with that. There's also another bat on the left-hand side of the room. You can totally ignore this bat. You don't need to kill it. There's no reason to kill it unless you want to be a completionist. Then go ahead, fine. The next mechanic in this room is the mobs by the door. They actually spawn in twice, so you have your first load to get rid of, and then you have a second lot that will spawn after you got rid of the first lot. So you want to be careful here. Try to pull things towards you one at a time or two at a time. This will make your life a lot easier. Apply this principle to the entire dungeon, because if you get piled on, then you're making your healer work a lot harder for you. And it's going to make things more tricky. So I absolutely recommend you take things more slowly. That way you're not chewing through more of your potions and stuff like that. I do recommend you bring like a bunch of food in this one, a bunch of potions. Bring a good amount. That way you're not totally relying on the healer 24/7. Because that healer is going to be wanting to focus on the tank when it comes to the last boss room. They cannot be focusing on the DPS all the time. Because they got to keep that tank alive, because he has the most important job in that room, really. So you clear out the ghost, you clear out the lost, and then a second lot spawns you. You should get like 2 ghosts with this one. One of them's golden, so he's a little bit harder to get rid of, and you got a bunch of lost. You probably want to stand at the back and keep pulling things towards you. Otherwise, if you're standing in kind of like how my group did near the door, then they all spawn on top of you and you have to deal with them all in one go. And that makes things a little bit more tricky. But pretty much chew through these mobs, get rid of them. How I said so, with pulling them is the best way. And then you can go ahead and click E on the door with the ball in it, and that way you can open the door and get through to the next stage. Coming into the next room, it's a big floor plan, but on your left straight away is a ghost, and I would go down the left first and get rid of them. So pull things towards you. We'll pull this little ghost towards us and get rid of it, or this poltergeist, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call them ghosts because they look like ghosts to me. Pretty much that's how it's going. But we're going to get rid of those. And then there's another ghost down there that's like a lightning ghost. So you want to pull him towards you. Or you pull the lost towards you first. It depends what's in front of you. Pull the things in front of you first, then get rid of those. So once you clear the ads down there, you can then go ahead and come down. Now there's this big kind of bottom part in this room. And there's like a waterfall down there. And underneath that waterfall is a chest that you should go ahead and pick up. There's also some plants down there and some silver nodes that you can farm if you like, if your team is patient enough for you, or if you're lucky enough to get it first. But you can go ahead and grab this while you're down there. Might as well. Some extra resources don't hurt anyone. Once you're done down there, you can come back up, and you can either go through the bottom part of the passage and go to the far side of the room and go for the troll, or I recommend you should probably go up the top first and defeat the lost and one ghost on the top part by going up the wooden scaffolding. My team here chose to go for the big troll first, so they brought him along, which is fine. That works out fine. You could go up top and jump down on him, which is kind of handy, but we brought him to us, which should avoided the ghost next to him, so that's kind of fine. But this is the troll type minion. He's exactly kind of going to be like your training against the final boss, because he works exactly like the final boss, but with less damage. The final boss will hurt a lot more. But his mechanics and stuff work exactly the same. He does the vomit, he does the slap and the stomp and all of that. So be careful for that. Except from he doesn't do an extra spawning in of mobs like the final boss does. But he's kind of your practice against how the final boss is. Keep track of his movements and how he moves. Now, he will do one thing, which you'll see. He throws up all over the floor. And if you have any lost in the area, when he does this, it's going to attract them to that pile. They're going to eat from that pile, and they're going to get a damage bonus. And that's going to be an absolute pain in the bum. When they get that damage bonus, they're going to hurt a lot more. So, you probably want to stop them doing that or get rid of them before they do that. And that will help you against that. Because otherwise, they're going to hurt a lot more. That's one thing that they do, but try and go for the back of the troll, because you're going to do some extra critical damage there. Your tank can tank it, and that'll work out fine. The tank will need to step out of the vomit though, because otherwise it's going to do a lot of damage to him. And then it'll probably be nice then if the healer puts a healing circle on you while that's happening. Now the next door is on the opposite side of the room from where you entered in. So you go over to the other side. The troll should be right next to the door where you go in. and it will open up the next passage once you killed everything. Now in this room is on the left hand side, there's some ghosts and lost. You get rid of them first before you do anything else. That way you won't have so much of a pain, because there's another nest up by the next part that you need. So you defeat those lost and the ghost. There's an ore you can go get, and as well, it's a purple ore. You go ahead and mine that. And then you got your next problem. We're going for the nest, but there's a kind of like a boss lost up there as well. And he does kind of hurt, so you want your tank to kind of pull that damage away from you while you get rid of the nest at least. So you can see there's quite a lot of them up there. You're just going to have to go straight in on this one, or you get someone to pull them down and you get a couple of people to go up and wreck the nest. That way it's going to be less of a problem. But yeah, they're going to be a bit of a pain on this part. You're going to have to be quick about it and deal with it with care. So as you can see, we've all gone up there. We're getting rid of the nest. I did actually get caught by the boss at some point because the tank didn't take aggro in the corner, which was not fun at all. I managed to slip out though. It was a bit crazy. Definitely don't want to do that. Once you got rid of the little boss out of this room, the mini boss and the lost and the nest, there's this stone with a kind of blue glowing circle thing on it, like kind of a hit marker on it actually. And you can use your Azov staff to open this kind of rock, and it's going to give you like a key to open the next room up to be able to go across that room with the buttons that you were in just previously. And then you head into the next room, which has another yellow ghost in it, and sorry, not yellow, an orange ghost, and it has another nest. You can go down into the left hand side bit first to get rid of the ghost and the one lost, and then I recommend going to get the nest, or you can pull them towards you in the corridor that's there, and that actually works out fine as well, being able to do that. Once you got rid of the nest and all of that, like I said previously and done all that, you're going to come into this big floor plan room. And in this big floor plan room, there's a lost on the right you can get rid of straight away, a ghost next, and then there's this kind of sphere in the middle. One person will need to go up to that sphere and use their staff to translate the sphere so it opens the next gateway. And once you're done with that, you're going to come onto the next part where you have to deal with another nest, get rid of the lost nest, get rid of the lost there, and then you have your next problem, which is probably going to be the worst part of this area, which is this fire ghost. He actually really hurts. He does this kind of splash attack on the floor that kind of looks like there's embers on the floor. And when he does this, it really hurts to stand in it, so you don't want to stand in it if you cannot. You want to get out of that, and that way you can go ahead and defeat him. So it's going to hurt quite a bit, but as long as you kind of get out the way of the fire floor circle and don't take too many hits from this fire guy, you should be fine, as long as your healer's taking care of you guys, which he should do when this is happening. And then you come across another nest after that with some more lost that you're going to need to get rid of. Do the same kind of thing, repeat, etc. You know what to do with the nests by now. Once you've taken care of that, you can go over to the other side of this ruin and you can pick up another supply chest and get some more good loot. Then you can go through into the room with the 3 buttons that you're previously in and walk by this respawn point. So you're back in this room with the 3 buttons. Now, you're going to need 3 people to stand on each of these buttons. Now, a little warning, if you're on the right-hand side, it's going to go ahead and spawn a big troll on you. If you're on the left-hand side button, it's going to go ahead and spawn a ghost on you. So the idea is when this happens, you actually want to pull these back up to the top where everybody else is. So make sure you do that so you don't have much pain. Or you can kind of wait with them a bit. With my team, they were struggling a bit up there, so I needed to hold the ghost off for a bit. And then I could come back up and help them when they said to come back up. But the idea is you do want to bring them up and help out with that so they can help you, because most of the time you're not going to be able to defeat these 2 on your own. You're going to need help from your team, so bring them up the platform as much as you can, or delay them, as long as you're bringing them up for the rest to help you defeat them, then you should be alright. So as you can see, the troll and the ghost, someone's getting the troll up first. I'm just holding the ghost off for the meantime, and then I'm going to bring it back up in a minute. And then we all defeat it up there together and help each other out. And then that should be fine, and you can move on to the next area. You'll see the bridge has come across now that you clicked on all the buttons, and you can move over the bridge. Now, across the bridge is like a bat to kill. There's a couple of lost here, and there is another troll. So I suggest pulling the bat over and the lost, and then deal with the troll last. Although you kind of want to go into that other area where the troll is to defeat the troll, because otherwise if you tether them too far over, then they actually run back and heal up again. So you don't want that to happen, so I would go and meet the troll there. Don't fight them on the bridge because they'll knock you off easily and you'll have to run all the way back up again. Fight them on the big plan areas, otherwise you're going to have trouble. Once you've done that, you collect another box in the corridor and you come across the Star Shrine room where your first boss to defeat is. And this guy is a tricky boy. He'll tell you pretty much if your team can take the last boss or not, because he's a bit of a pain in the bum. And if you can't defeat this boss, then you definitely can't defeat the last boss, you know what I mean? So this is kind of like a test here. But in the first part of this room, you get rid of some of these lost. On the right hand side is another bat. You want to lure him to you and get rid of him. And then there is also a ghost and another troll that are kind of patrolling on the left and the right hand side, coming towards the middle now and again. Now you either pull the ghost to you first at once and then get rid of him, or you pull the troll first. Either one's fine, it doesn't matter what order you do it in, as long as you're not pulling them both at the same time, because it's going to be a bit more of a pain to battle them that way. If you can deal with them separately, then it'll make things a lot easier for you. Once you got rid of those, you can go ahead and go up to the middle and go to the left hand side. There's like a corridor that goes down there. There's a couple of lost, or one lost down there, that's guarding a chest. Go ahead and collect that, you might as well. And then you can come back to the middle and there's an altar. And in this altar you'll want to go ahead and open it up, and it's going to go and spawn your boss in. So you should have got that hallowed candle previously. That should be the thing that you need at that box to go ahead and put into the shrine. That way you can spawn your boss in. Now this boss has some painful mechanics you need to be wary of, because otherwise it's going to be a hard time. You'll see he's ice resistant straight off the bat, so not great for ice. However, if you do have an ice gauntlet, and of course if you do get buffs from it, like standing in the ice to regen some health or whatever, you can still use it and it'll be just fine, because that's going to help you and your teammates out regardless. But this guy's a pain in his own league. Like, you have to definitely be careful of him. He hits hard, and he has this stunning ability that he can put on anyone at any time. You'll see this chain go round in a circle. It's a purple chain, and when you get that around you, it's going to stun you. That way you can't move. And then he's going to spawn in some ghost minions that are going to fly at you, either from the middle of him, or he's going to come from two sides. And those really hurt. You need to get out of there as soon as possible. Do not stand in that, because otherwise you will die. You know, you will just die. So that's not good. He'll do this several times. He can do it on anyone, like the healers or other people around the room. So be wary of that. The idea with it, if it does spawn on you and it does stun you and you're stuck in it, then you can dodge backwards if you did get stunned. And just dodge backwards and you'll get out there really quickly, as fast as you can. That way you don't suffer any damage. So if you can do that, you'll get out of the damage area and you can go ahead and keep beating up the boss, because that thing's going to happen regardless of what he's doing. So as you can see, it stunned me there. He spawned in his minions. I'm just going to get out of that and move on and carry on trying to hit him. He does move around quite quick, which means he can be a bit finicky to go ahead and get sometimes. However, just keep at it and you should eventually be able to defeat this boss. Just make sure you're dodging those chain circles. Make sure you're keeping an eye out for the flying ghost as well, because he does have quite a big radius with him as well, that you need to be careful of. And yeah, as you can see, he removed half my health by stunning me, and those ghosts flying at me. So they're no joke. But yeah, once you've defeated that, then you can go ahead and collect the chest, which is right next to his altar on the side. There should be a note next to it. And you can move on to the right-hand side at the back and move on to the next room, where it's going to be guarded by the door by a troll, which you'll have to go ahead and defeat. Same kind of methods as you were doing before. Get rid of that troll and move on. Once you got rid of the troll, make sure you're all healed up and stuff before you get into the next room. And we have a fire ghost, which you can pull straight to you from where the troll is, so you might as well pull him after you're done with the troll and all healed up. And you can deal with that one first. There's also a lost that you can pull as well to get out of the way. And then there's like a kind of mini boss kind of ghost in a way. It's just like a tougher kind of ghosty boss, and he's pretty mean. He does have some kind of unique kind of ice splashing abilities, where he'll shoot this big kind of ice beam thing at you that goes across the floor. and put spikes of ice up into the floor. So he could be a bit tricky. You probably want to deal with him on his own if you can. That way you make things a little easier for yourself. He's brutal, so he's doing a bit more damage, so make sure you get rid of him. Shouldn't be too difficult to get rid of that one. Just make sure you're being careful about it. As you can see, someone did die in my run here when they got beamed by him with that big ice thing that he did with the spikes. Watch out for that one, that will probably hurt the most. But once you defeated him, in the room next on, there should be a couple more lost to get rid of. One of them's a spitter and one of them's a melee. Get rid of those, and then you should have another respawn point. And this is going to be your room before the boss room, which is the bit that counts. Now, the boss is its own other story. When you come into this room, you'll see he is protected by a big void bubble. And you don't want to trigger him first. Make sure you get rid of all the ads in the boss room before you get to the boss. Do not run too close to the boss, otherwise you'll wake him up and you'll have to deal with him. And ideally you want all of those ads gone before you want to tackle the boss, because he's going to spawn his own ads on you, and that's not going to be no fun. So get rid of those lost on the left hand side of the entrance, then get rid of the other lot on the right. Make sure you're all healed up, make sure your gear's repaired enough for this next part, because this is when it's going to get more tricky, and it's going to probably go downhill. You might need a couple of tries for this, or you might have a really good team and you can do it all in one go. But usually you'll have a couple of tries because you're getting used to each other's synergy if you haven't already by now. That and other people have different methods of doing this, so it could be a bit of an issue that way. But you can either do this with a tanking method or you can do it with kiting. Kiting sometimes works out a little bit better. And then the mobs spawning in is also an issue. So once you've woken him up, he's going to go away and straight away spawn his 3 minions in. Now, some teams will go ahead and kill all 3 of these minions. They have like a dedicated 2 people to 1 person to deal with those. However, they are not always the best to go ahead and kill straight away, because as soon as you kill them all, he spawns more in straight away. So the idea is usually you want someone at least kind of taking care of them or dealing with them slowly. So 1 person or 2 people to take care of these minions, or try to keep 2 alive at least, and maybe that person could be the person that's shooting at the same time with some kind of magic ability. So they take care of that and keep them away, because the more minions that's spawning in all the time, the more painful this fight's going to be for you. So you don't want them spawning in too quickly again, otherwise it's going to be a lot of trouble. So you'll have your tank. The tank can either block it with a shield, or they can just kite it around and dodge his attacks. Usually a bit of both works out pretty well, although I gotta say, when you're using the shield, sometimes just some abilities he does are just too painful to block all the time. There's like this free tier ground slam he does that will take out your tank really fast. That tank needs to be aware of that. So you can block some attacks, dodge a lot of attacks as well. As long as he's keeping aggro, and you have someone keeping aggro of that boss, then you'll be alright. Or if the tank goes down, then you have someone to revive the tank. Ideally you don't want him to go down, but someone else would need to take care of the boss and keep him away while that person's getting revived at least. Pretty much with the boss, yeah, if you do have him on your back, you'll see he does kind of like a lunge at you, and you want to make sure to dodge at that time, or do a double dodge just to get out of the way of that. Because if he hits you, it's going to deplete a huge pool of your health, and it's going to be a huge issue. It's going to hurt a lot and all of that business. So you want to be careful. Some AoE abilities on the minions might help as well to slow them down. Anything that stuns or slows, hammer, or you could have the ice gauntlet slow or trapping, or anything that roots them could be handy to kind of get them out of the way so they're not always charging after you. You're going to have that mechanic as well in this room, where they are doing their thing of eating the pool of vomit to get extra strength. So you want to beware on that. So either keep them entertained for a while or defeat them, etc. That's going to help. But I always think when it comes to the main boss, having the tank and at least 1 DPS with him all the time is an absolute requirement. Every time I've done this run, it's worked out really well having that. I'm playing the DPS in this kind of role. I'm kind of doing a bit of AoE DPS as well. Slowing, stunning, and then mostly doing a lot of damage with the hatchet while I'm working on that. So that's kind of my role in this kind of boss fight. But yeah, have your tank dodging or blocking. Have one of the DPSs constantly just damaging away. If you have minions after you, at least try and get a few hits in, but don't block the other DPSs that are trying to get some hits in. Otherwise, they're going to get hit by the minions as well, and it's going to be a pain in the bum. So you have that. Healer's going to have to keep an eye on a tank mainly in this situation. I definitely recommend if you're a runner around, then either you run into some of those healing pools they put on the ground, or you heal yourself with potions. That way the healer can mainly focus on the tank, which is going to need the most health because they have the boss whacking at them all the time. That way you're helping your healer out a little bit more because they don't have eyes in the back of their head, if you get me. They can only do so much unless you have a really, really good healer. But make their job a little easier, you know what I mean? If they do have the healing thing that attaches to you as well, it's kind of handy too. But pretty much, you have your healer, you have the DPS with the tank on the boss, and then a stunner can be great for the mobs in between to deal with the mobs or whatever floats your boat in that instance. Or if your DPS is getting hit by the mobs sometimes, then you can also just keep them out of the way and keep them slowed and deal with that, whatever they are doing. Just keep them entertained for a bit, you know. And eventually, as long as you're persistent enough, you should get through. Now, I need to warn you about something in this room. If you go down once, then do not just res yourself. You need someone to revive you. If you go down twice, you're permanently out of the boss fight. You get stuck behind a door, and you cannot continue, you can't help. So keep yourself alive as much as possible. This is why I say don't go in lower level, lower than 20, because if you die in this encounter, you need people to help entertain the mobs or do DPS. If you start hemorrhaging too many people, then you might as well just wipe and start again, which you can do. And it resets the encounter and the boss is full health again. So you might need a few practice runs that way, but just keep at it. I do say with the boss, if you do have something with an ability, you can go ahead and quick smack the boss with a few abilities and then go back to hitting minions or whatever else you're doing. You can focus on that. But he's a painful boss. He does a lot of damage, you know. But yeah, there is a point as well in this boss fight. I have noticed it in a couple of runs. It's really weird. I don't know if it's a bug or not, or if it's just one of those things where your time runs out, or he gets too powerful and he wipes the entire floor with you. But if you do spend too much time here, it does seem that he does have a wipe mechanic where he roars and everybody dies. So beware of that one. I think sometimes he casts it too early, which is why it feels like a bit of a bug. But beware of that. He can have a wiping mechanic if you spend too much time here. But you can see for yourself how long that takes. But do beware of that. It's pretty forgiving on the first one, but it is a thing that I have noticed in a couple of my runs. There is a wiping thing that he does do. Keep up the constant damage, keep up the constant pace, and you should get through this fight. It might be a bit of a pain in the arse if your team's not quite got the ideas. You could always discuss strategies and chat. Good communication is always great for this, I always find. So make sure you chat to your teammates. Make sure they're on the same page, because if you're not on the same page, then you're of course going to just keep banging your heads into the wall until you get to the right place and finally get there, or an hour later you finally get there, kind of thing. So make sure everybody's on the same page, work out your strategy, and you'll get there finally. Once you've defeated him, he will drop a baggie of loot you can go ahead and pick up, and then at the top of the room is a little altar that you'll need to go to for the quest. So go ahead and go to that altar. Make sure you go and get your heart thing out of that, get your gem out of it, and then there's a treasure chest near the portal on the left hand side of the room. So you get that treasure chest and then you can leave through the portal, and that's all done. So make sure you've done your heart in the altar, get your boss loot bag, get your chest, and then you're all done and you're finished with the excavation. That's a complete run you've done. Awesome. You should probably get a title as well called Archaeologist, if I remember right, by doing this as well. You can go and put on as a fancy kind of, oh, I've done this kind of thing. But that's pretty much how it goes. You should get some nice loot via this. Sometimes he can have some special loot. You'll see when you first open the panel to the excavation up, there are some blue rewards you can get. They're not the only blue kind of item rewards you can get though. You can get multiple blue item rewards out of this via different bosses. So at the purple guy, I've got a blue ice gauntlet before, which is quite nice as well. So you can get a variety of stuff as well. So that's pretty good. Another thing with a boss fight as well, if someone does go down and you're a person with no aggro, you should be the one to revive that person that's down. don't wait for someone else that's, well, don't wait for the person that is being followed by stuff, because if they're being followed by stuff, it's going to be horribly hard for them to revive you. It's going to be virtually impossible to do that. So just make sure, you know, you go ahead and revive if you're one of those people that are not getting attacked by anything. So this could probably be a good thing for the healer to go and do. Anyway, I hope this video helped you. That's all my tips from running AMRINE Excavation. I've run it quite a few times. That's kind of what I've just picked up. Another little tidbit on the end is there's a dog outside of the excavation called Barkmedes. If you take his quests and get bones out of the trolls throughout, you can get pieces of furniture every time you do this for him. So I do recommend picking up his quest, because it could be quite fun to do. And a little extra that you'll get anyway, you might as well just add it to the pool that you're doing. And some of the faction missions you get as well can also contribute to AMRINE Excavation, things you do in there, like defeating a certain amount of ghosts and whatever else. So bear those things in mind. Pick up your quests from Barkmedes and whatever else. So anyway, I hope this video helped. Thank you for watching. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!